Hello everyone, welcome to my new Cataclysm Mage beginner guide. I'll try to cover all the things you need to know when starting a Fire Mage, going through some fast introduction, haste or crit debate, gear, talents, glyphs, abilities, and some gameplay in the end. I hope it will help you in getting some basic knowledge on how to play this class properly. Okay, Fire Mage is one of the most fun specs in PvP due to instant power black procs, huge crits, AoE damage, good control that comes through Dragon's Breath, Blast Wave, Polymorph and Ring of Frost. It is RNG spec because in some isolated fights you can end up with 0 procs, and on the other side you can have fights that last 10 seconds if luck is on your side. Fire Mages are also known as one of the biggest damage dealers in larger groups, so it's not strange to see them topping charts on battlegrounds too. There are some new things compared to Rat like AoE CC, Ring of Frost, authorized talents that literally revives us and gives us 40% health, castable Sword, while moving around, Flame Orb is a bonus damage dealer, and reworked and pretty strong Combustion. With all that being said, let's start with those things one by one. Before we start listing items, let's clear out the must-have stats first. About hit rating in PvP, you can get 4 to 5%, around 200 spell penetration, which is one item, probably back or neck. Usually it is back to take that neck with a haste rating. You can go up to 240 spell penetration to avoid mage armor in combination with some resistance auras. Then we have haste with 15% passive cap, but we will talk about that in a minute. Crit 15 to 18% passive is the least you can get, and then we have resilience. If you play crit build, you could have a little bit more resilience since a lot of PvP items have that stat. If you're chasing haste, you will need to drop it way below full PvP gear. So let's say normal build is around 3k resilience, but if you want to go haste, you will need to drop even below 2.5k for these starter seasons. Mastery rating isn't that important. If you go full crit, mastery is totally worthless. And if you go haste, mastery could actually be efficient to combine with. Crit and haste have priority over it or Fire Mage. You can have it, but you will most likely reforge it in one of those two. Now let's talk about haste or critical Fire Mage. Depends on which way you choose, haste or critical. Critical was the only option in Red since we really depended on our crit chance for many procs, and whole Combustion was around making crits. Critical is always not bad go-to way, you can't really fail with it, but it could really be frustrating if luck isn't on our side, which actually can happen a lot on lower gear levels. With more crits, you make more hot streaks procs, and that allows us to bank some instant Pyroblast, proccing Pyroblasting Knight and making more damage in that case in small period of time. There were fights where I could proc 3 pyros in a row, but if that doesn't happen, crit build becomes a waste. Again, it all comes to RNG. On the other side, you might say, okay bro, why should we build haste just for casting scorches? But reality is that with haste, your damage over time from combustion, flaming bomb and pyroblast ticks faster, and giving us possibility to have up to 2 or 3 bonus ticks for each dot ability for same amount of time, which could be insane burst in 10 seconds, where we absolutely don't rely on our crit chance in almost any procs. To fully understand power of ticks and haste, pause this video and go to the combustion part and then come back here and resume the video. The problem in the beginning of Cataclysm with S10 and especially S9 PvP sets is lack of stats. In fact, for haste build to be worth picking, you have some numbers you have to reach to gain that bonus ticks from dots. These numbers are 5% haste for extra combustion tick, 12.5% haste for extra pyroblast living bomb tick, 15% haste for second combustion tick, and 25% for third combustion tick. Everything above 10% is hard to obtain in these lower PvP seasons. You might have to sacrifice your resilience and get some PvE items to reach at least 12.5% haste, but again I would say that you need at least 15% passive to get second combustion tick to make haste build worth it. You will maybe need to drop resilience to around 2.3k or even lower to reach that number, which is around 35 to 40% drop in resilience. You will start becoming Glass Cannon. Also, option to boost haste is to drop for example some pros talents and go for arcane to get 2 to 3% more haste, which could be huge. So for example, we have here full S10 PvP set with pure haste where it's possible. All other pieces are forged from mastery or crit into a haste. Then we have full gems intellect haste, haste enchantment boots, 2 main PvE pieces with pure crit and haste stats, then PvE ring with haste, and we couldn't reach 15% as you can see. So like I said, we need to drop at least one more PvP item to make that number. That will make our resilience around 2.3k. But our critical chance is at 15.2% and plus molten armor it's around 20%. On other side, if we go full crit just with PvP gear, like we can see now, we have 27% crit chance but almost 3.5k resilience, which means we had 10% less damage from our enemies. We can surely make it a little above 30% critical chance if we go with PV items and same resilience as haste build, but my brain exploded doing mathematics and combinations with gear pieces, so yeah, you can make 10% more critical chance than haste build, which is not small amount at all. Conclusion is that again you need to make choice by yourself. Having 5% haste isn't hard, but it won't change almost anything with giving you just one combustion tick. So if you want to go haste, you will need that 15% passive or active and around 2.3k resilience. That will make some noticeable change when you use combustion with just one pyroblast and living bomb on target. In the later phases I would definitely recommend going for 15% passive. I repeat, passive haste cap, because we would have more resilience and crit from same amount of PvP and PvE items. I said passive because you can go for like 8 or 9% passive haste, 4 more percent from lifeblood from herbalism, and 2 to 3% more from talents. That will allow you to reach 15% haste when you active all of these things. However, if you choose haste, don't bother having mastery rating. It could be useful since it increases tick damage grandly. Until you get some good gear, I couldn't really say what's better, crit or haste. Crit on other side, even on 30%, still is RNG and could end up without crits, without procs and without bonus ticks from our dots. But if it procs, yeah, you can literally end fight in 10 seconds. Me personally, if you ask me, I would go for active 15% with herbalism gear and talents. So my final build with Season 10 would be something like this. Getting 13% passive spell haste through gear, PvE neck, chest and ring, and still having around 2.8k resilience. Another 2% spell haste we get through Netherwind Presence talent. If you want more resilience, you can take PvP neck with haste instead and change 1 or 2 gems, or even take PvP reforged chest, change some of the gems to pure haste instead of intellect haste, and reach 12% haste and take all 3 haste talent points instead of Cone of Cold. That way we will have 15% passive haste, and I think that's more or less it. Combustion is our main damage dealer when it comes to burst, especially if we reach 15% haste, but it should be used in a proper way. It says that it combines all damage over time effects such as Living Bomb, Ignite, Pyroblast over time damage, Crossfire Bolt and so on. In fact, the more overtime effects and the stronger Ignite, the stronger Combustion, especially we add another 2 ticks from haste. Trust me, it can deal tremendous amount of damage. The difference between good and bad Combustion is really big, but the problem is that we can't always open the way we want in PvP, nor we can get always the crit from Pyroblast to make that Combustion insanely big. Ignite says it deals 40% of that critical ability, which means the difference between 1k Flame Strike damage and 25k Pyroblast hit is insanely big. So look at this Combustion with only Living Bomb, and then we will see the Combustion with Frozen Target where our Talent Shatter multiply our crit chance, and we are probably sitting at around 80 to 90% crit chance on our next Pyroblast. After Pyro, we just hit a Living Bomb and instant Combustion, and the results are just outstanding. On first one, with just Living Bomb, we had just 21k damage from combustion, and other one had insanely 116,000 damage, which is 5x, and the overall damage difference is just another level. We had 2 crits in both tries, so imagine now having 12 ticks instead of 10 and some more crit chance from better gear. It could end up on 150 to 200k damage from just combustion. Talents are pretty straightforward for PvP, with some minor changes which won't have any significant impact on DPS. We more or less speedrun these must-have talents that doesn't change in any PvP build. I won't go talent by talent because it's waste of time. You need to read it by yourself to understand your class better. Only very big new thing is Cauterize talent that restores 40% of our health when we are about to die, and then they slowly drop into 1 HP through next 4 seconds. We can stop that either with healer behind our back or with ice block instantly when it occurs. However, when we hit 24 points, we need to spend 1 more point into Molten Shields because this talent is very useful for our movement speed during the combat. Now it's proctable when our Mage Shield expires from damage, which always happen against casters. Then we go for 3 points in critical mass, and we have to spend 2 more points somewhere to unlock Living Bomb. Improved Flame Strike is useless in terms of damage dealer. Its damage is pure trash and it could be used for battlegrounds to make the juicy numbers just by hitting blasting wave in group of people. Pyromaniac, also a battleground talent, actually very good, but it has no use in 1 vs 1 fights and probably will be dispelled in 3 vs 3 arenas, but could help a lot in getting those bonus sticks in battlegrounds and topping charts with DPS. Firepower, pure trash talent, 2% more fire damage and flame orb explosion for some laughable amount. Definitely waste of points. And improved Scorch that most people use because it reduces its mana to 0. After that, we jump on Frost Tree, where we pick of course Piercing Guides for 3% crit and one of the best talents out there, Shatter, that multiplies our crit chance on frozen targets by 3. Not 3% more chance, but 3x our critical chance, which is guaranteed Pyroblast crit on frozen targets. Then improved Cone of Cold to freeze our target with it, helps stunts in making space, adding some more damage on Shatter and so on. You'll be using it a lot, definitely worth the points. And in the end, we got improved Conjure Spell for 4 second silence and 1 more point, which could be used in Netherwind Presence to gain that 1% more haste rating, which is roughly around 120 haste in gear. Why not? If you have problem with reaching haste through gear, you can remove Cone of Cold and go for all 3 points here. That is a great boost of haste, like having 2 big PvE items instead. When it comes to glyphs, first major is definitely Pyroblast 5% crit as our main damage dealer. Then we have 5% Fireball crit, which can be replaced with Frostfire Bolt, but if you replace it with this glyph, Frostfire Bolt loses movement speed reduction on target and becomes more or less worthless. So I would stick with Firebolt because it still has 1 second less cast time than Pyroblast and could be hard casted in a fight, unlike Pyroblast. And third one is Molten Armor, which gives us 2 more critical chance. This one could be replaced with 3% increased damage on Living Bomb, but I think it's not that useful. Still up to you. Then we have Polymorph to reset the fight and remove damage over time effects, Evocation to regen our 40% health, and Dragon Breath, which reduces E cooldown by 3 seconds. Be careful, Dragon Breath now could have diminishing return if casted instantly when it comes from cooldown, because cooldown is now 17 seconds. Could be replaced with Blast Wave or Frost Armor, but none of these will make any significant impact on gameplay. Again, up to you and your preference. These 3 minor are worthless. Now armors. What armor should you use? Well, let's make it clear. You will be running with Molten Armor everywhere and then you switch it on purpose when you see certain enemies. You use Mage Armor against casters, but only against casters they have some sort of magic effects like Fear, Silence, Coil, Slow, and all similar effects, because this armor lower the duration of such effects by 35%, which is huge. For example, you can run Molten Armor against Balance Druid to make the most of damage. This shield could also be used against Paladin, but I prefer to trinket the Repentance and blink the stun. You use Frost Armor against melee enemies like rogues, warriors and maybe feral druids. Against rogues, it can actually help to make a distance without blink, so you can save it for shadow stab. But warriors can be tough with all the charges, jumps and silences. Sometimes you can even go for molten armor and damage. Switching would be the best thing. There aren't some insane macros, but I'm using these. First one is combination of active defensive trinket with 20k bonus HP and health stone or healing potion. Then we have mouse over focus macros, so we don't have to switch targets to make a focus. We just move our cursor to incoming enemy and make them our focused enemy. Ice block macro with stop casting in case you start casting Scorch and you see some huge DPS spell is coming like Lava Burst or Chaos Bolt, so you can instantly react. Ice Lance with stop casting in case enemy use Spell Reflector or Grounding Totem. Polymorph with focus, where my original R key is for target and R plus shift for our focused enemy. Then we have Molten and Frost Armor changeable on same button. You can split them as you wish. Wand overmass shoot to destroy some totems without switching targets. Counterspell with stop casting and focus target, same as Polymorph. Then we have just stop casting macro to actually stop our Scourge cast when we want to fake cast without getting silenced or kicked. And last one is bursting combustion macro with combination of light blood for 4% more haste for ticks, one of the usable offensive trinkets, volcanic potion and combustion in the end. This one is a banger for DPS. That's more or less everything. If you need help with macros, make sure to ask me in the comment section. Gameplay will be random and I'll try to voice cover some of the footage. Why I did something, what should I have done better, and more. So there we have a DK. You should start with Blast Wave for slow and they will most likely grip you if you don't have a reach. I silenced him to prevent it, but he was faster. I was clicking Dragon Breath, but because I was expecting AMS instantly after silence, but I was again late because of Scorch cast. When he uses AMS, use your mana shield and mage ward. Use your blink on his grip, but I couldn't blink because of his strangling. 4 will give you bonus speed, which makes it easier to make space. After AMS you can use Dragon Breath again and Ring of Frost to start casting Pyroblast into a freeze to proc a Shatter. After crit Shatter, Living Bomb and instant combustion, and boom, he gone from 90% health to 0 in less than 10 seconds. There we have half season 11 Feral. We use Frost Armor and Mana Shield in opener. I revealed him first so he couldn't stun. If he stuns you, blink away and prepare for Dragon Breath after his charge. First thing I do anyways, Living Bomb and Breath to try to force him trinket or open with Pyro. This guy instantly trinketed and gone aggressively. Use Cone of Cold and Frost Nova to keep him slow all the time, so he must shapeshift. He bashed me on Scorch and left 5 CP a rip, which is a killer, literally 40 to 50% HP. So I instantly blocked to remove it and waited for Breath to come off cooldown, because he doesn't have trinket now. He managed to open, I blinked and he didn't want to charge, so I kept him frozen or slowed, so he must do it. I prepared for Breath. What I thought here is to freeze him and breathe and pyro, but I used Cone of Cold, which lasts much less than Frost Nova, and I realized that late, so he wasn't frozen and we didn't get a pyro crit, which is huge drop of DPS. Anyway, I used Combustion and now Image to keep him slowed. I opened Ring of Frost, but he got out of it, so I think fast and I realized I can actually advocate now. He tried to Cyclone, I silenced and it was GG. It was all about blocking the rip damage in the beginning and using Breath and Freeze all the time so he can't make points. There we have Unholy DK. You should start open with Frost Nova for freeze and then Breath, maybe silence in between to prevent him from using AMS. That would be perfect opener. Don't waste Ring of Frost in the beginning, he will trinket it. Again, spam Cone of Cold and Nova on him and his pet all the time. I made some sick burst in the beginning because he was saving his AMS for my Ring of Frost, but he saw I used Combustion and he used it. He summoned Gargoyle and I should now use Ring of Frost and move around him, but I freaking missed the circle and didn't freeze him, which is very unfortunate. I had to block now. He used Lichborn to heal himself, he gripped me ASAP and it was perfect time to freeze all 3 of them and blink away and use Evocation. I also failed silence on Gargoyle and blocked in same time. It's also a waste. Don't mind me, it was one of the first fights. It was perfect freeze and blink. I bought so much time and took least damage from Gargoyle I could. I summoned Image Flame Orb and I started dealing some very nice damage. I actually thought I got him here. I had bot procs on Impact and Pyroblast and none of them critted. I used Silence when he was at 30k health, which is maybe 3 to more seconds of fight, and boom, I couldn't finish him off. He sacrificed his pet in last moment and popped AMS. I managed to survive even that without block, and I tried to breath him and my stupid image interrupted that. What could I do better? A lot of things. Just don't use Combustion before his AMS and without Pyroblast and Ignite ever. Ring of Frost just must freeze at least both of pets, where you can freeze DK manually and try to get away and buy time. If you silence Gargoyle, don't use block in same time, it's a waste. Now look at this when you can use invisibility. Mage is following me. Switch to Mage Armor fighting them, go in Whiz and try to open first. Boom, there we go, Breath, Ring of Frost, Hardcast Pyroblast, boom, Combustion, Silence on Scorch, and look at the insanity of damage here. He gone to 0% in 10 seconds. There we have a Paladin. You should always try to open with Blast Wave to slow him down and try to dispel him ASAP for later part. This guy has a not so much trick. He kicked my Fire Skull, but I just switched to Cone of Cold and froze him. He used Repentance. You either wait him to attack you or trinket it and freeze again. After this second freeze, you start clicking Spell Steal to remove his Hand of Freedom ASAP. That's why you need to clear his buffs before that moment. Ring of Frost will most likely not work against Paladin because of Trinket and Divine Shield, so try to freeze him with Nova and Instant Breath when he doesn't have a Trinket. I mean, he can again Divine, but you can try. And try to catch crit Pyroblast that way. This is an old video also, but I'm trying to give you tips overall. You can see how much space you make by dispelling Hands of Freedom and using Blast and Freezes. Just kite him out. And Rogue opened to me, I was low and I was waiting for Cauterize to proc so I can use Ice Block and save that 40% health. Everything was GG. And yeah guys, that's more or less everything. Gameplay part was very random, but I tried to give some overall tips. For more gameplay, make sure to leave a subscribe and like. Thanks everyone, and I hope I helped you. See you soon.